we're going to have the rest of this webinar as a panel discussion. And somebody that I most certainly admire, Angela Griffin, who is with Coals Together, and she is with the Business Navigator Alliance with us as well, will be moderating the discussion today. And I'm real excited to hear about this. We've got a lot of wonderful questions. Our panelists have a wealth of information as well. And I think you're very lucky if you're attending this today, or if you're watching this recording, to have the opportunity to learn from their experiences and to hear about some advice that they may have. So starting now, I'd like to introduce Angela. Angela is the president and CEO of Coals Together, the economic development organization for Coles County, charged with industrial recruitment and retention. Griffin has a BA in economics from the University of Illinois at Springfield, formerly Sangamon State University, and 29 years of experience in economic development, including working for the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity before joining Coals Together in 2004. At DCO, Griffin held various positions, including assistant to the director, manager of government relations, financial analysis, and marketing specialist. Angela, are you ready for today's panel discussion?
I am, Courtney. Thank you. And thanks to everyone joining us on the webinar today. As Courtney mentioned, we want to recognize National Women's Small Business Month by highlighting the benefits women-owned businesses bring to their communities. We also want to recognize that starting, growing, and successfully operating a business is never easy. But women business owners face unique challenges. And we're going to talk with successful women business owners about how they've navigated those challenges. But before we get started, I'm going to give you a little inside baseball. Our Navigator group always has a walkthrough of our webinars the week before, just to be sure there won't be any glitches and that we're all on the same page. So last week when we had our walkthrough, I was able to listen for the first time to the compelling stories from each of our panelists about why and how they ended up running their own businesses. And today I'm going to provide a brief introduction of each of these fascinating women, but then we're going to ask each panelist to pick up where I leave off. And as part of our introduction of them, let them tell you in their own words, their unique story and how they ended up where they are today. So we're going to start with Resa Shaner. Resa is the executive director of the Crawford County Development Association in Robinson, but she's also been a lifelong businesswoman. Resa has experience in both the private and public sectors. As the co-owner of an industrial construction business with more than 180 employees, her company was the first to receive the VPP star rating, which is the highest industrial safety rating in OSHA. After she moved to Crawford County in 1979, Resa began engaging with business and industry with the goal of increasing the quality of life for every resident in the county. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Resa and working with her as part of this Navigator group, and I've witnessed firsthand her leadership and her commitment to Crawford County and this entire region. So Resa, I'll let you tell us more about yourself and your background running a business, a woman-owned business.
Wow, thank you, Angela. And I am truly honored to be with this group of hardworking ladies. I think that as you listen to the panel today, you're going to come away with the takeaways, much like Angela mentioned. One, the power of a plan, and two, the power of a positive attitude. And I would just say to each woman or anybody that's interested in opening up a business, it doesn't matter if you have a degree. I earned the degree from the School of Hard Knocks about 30 years ago. And after 5 kids, 5 grandkids, and now 5 grand dogs, I earned my associate degree from Lincoln Trail College in May. So it can be done. But to Angela's point, it takes a lot of hard work and it takes determination. And there will be days that the world will not look right, but that's when you reach out for help, when you realize that you're in over your head. And many times when I owned the construction company, we were signatory with 12 different unions, and managing those contracts was just a huge task. But I always had people that I could reach out to. I made sure that I kept those communication lines open. But then in attaining the VPP status, working to move the cheese, right? If we're not moving the bar forward in our company, we're sitting still. And having people on your team that you can train, that you can trust, and that you keep them aligned. Lots of times my workers, we had a don't get bored list. And we would have meetings weekly about what are we doing on that list, or what are we gaining. So as a business owner, male or female, you are always moving, and having the power of a plan and a positive attitude, no matter what your obstacle is, no matter how hard it is, will be what sees you through. And being committed, but most of all, being committed to the people that you work with and to improve them. So Angela, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Resa. Our next panelist is Leslie Tarble. Leslie is the president and co-owner of Three Sisters Logistics, which is a crushed stone and aggregate material wholesaler and trucking company in Central Illinois. Three Sisters Logistics is proudly a woman-owned enterprise with over 30 trucks and various dump and hopper bottom trailers that services its customers. Previously, Leslie served as Chief Administrative Officer of LDI Limited, which is an Indianapolis-based family office and investment firm with over $1.5 billion in revenue. Prior to her role with LDI, she was Senior Vice President of Commercial Operations for 19th Capital, one of the largest Class A leasing portfolios with over 8,000 assets. And she held various finance and operations roles at quality companies, Celadon Trucking, and Triton Value Partners, an Atlanta-based private equity and consulting firm. Leslie, do you want to tell us about yourself and how you ended up where you are today?
Awesome. Thanks, Angela. I'm just going to echo all the comments that have already been made about this panel. I'm super excited to be up here with this group. I feel like, you know, as a woman, I immediately have my imposter syndrome on, and I'm going to try and hide that, you know, bury that deep down, and we can revisit that later in some sort of counseling session. But I am, my career started in trucking, basically after graduation from Butler University, with my degree in finance. I have been in mainly male-dominated industries my entire career, and realized pretty quickly that as a woman, I stood out. So I needed to keep check in everything that I was doing, and that I could use that either to my benefit, or that could be a major problem. I used that for my benefit by doing as much networking as I could, really learning the industry and embracing the trucking industry. It's a fascinating industry. And one thing that I always tell people is that new into their career is, you know, they're trying to find what they're passionate about. I can guarantee you I was not passionate about trucking when I started in the trucking industry. Once I got into the industry, I've now become very passionate about it. And when I was given the opportunity to purchase a company back at the end of 2019, after saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's going to be a trucking company, I said, yeah, let's do this. It's a wonderful industry and something that I'm very proud to be a part of. I'm looking forward to the discussion that we've got, you know, ahead of us.
Right. Thank you. Our next panelist is Cathrine Craig. Cathrine started her business after she became an empty nester. Her venture began with a gift gallery and custom framing shop in Sullivan, Illinois, and it has morphed into real estate, home redesign and staging services, personal property auctions, and a gallery full of home furnishing, gifts, and accessories called Cathrine's Gallery. Cathrine, do you want to tell us about yourself?
Hi there. Yes, thanks very much. Once again, I am happy to be a part of this panel group discussion this afternoon. I I guess I started my career early, and I graduated early from high school and started to work for a CPA firm 3 weeks after that, and learned sales and marketing and bookkeeping along the way. And like Angela said, I raised my kids and then decided to do something different. I decided to pursue a different challenge for me, getting into my creative side, and an opportunity came along to purchase a custom framing shop, and that quickly morphed into adding a gift gallery. And then that, like Angela said, that has morphed into a variety of things. And I tease and say that I'm getting ready to turn 58 in the early part of next year. And I feel like I'm just hitting my stride. I feel like I'm really just finally getting into everything that I want to do and that I really enjoy doing. And I've done a lot of things in my career, but right now I feel like everything's come full circle, and it's really only beginning. So it's never too late to start. Like Angela said, and like I said, if you want to do something later in life, it's okay. It's fun. You know, you don't necessarily have the same struggles that someone with kids at home and everything does. But I do have to say that I always make room and always make time for my granddaughter. That's a for sure thing too. She's 6, and we may not have kids living in the house anymore, but grandchildren time comes first.
Thanks, Robin. Sorry. Thanks, Catherine. Our final panelist is Robin. Robin Trapp is the owner of Betty Jane's Kitchen, a business that she opened in Paris, Illinois in 2017. She started out in a small 900 square foot cottage, and last November she finished remodeling and moved into a 20,000 square foot former tire shop, where she operates a restaurant, reception hall, and mercantile. Robin, you want to tell us about yourself?
I'll start over. Okay, I want to start at the beginning, encourage young women that come from families that don't have a lot of money, because I come from a family of 5. My dad made $12,000 a year. We lived on a farm. We learned hard work and dedication. We worked on the farm. When we didn't have enough food for the refrigerator, my dad would go out and go hunting and fishing. And so we learned to use our resources and the resources we had, and to work hard. I graduated high school a little bit early, just like I think Cathrine said. And 5 days after I graduated high school, I went to college. When I graduated college, I started a salon and ran a salon for 18 years. In the midst of that, I got married, have 3 children. I'm a Sunday school teacher. In doing hair and having a salon, it's great when your children are younger, but when they get a little bit older, they get involved in sports. Most of that is done in the evening. And then doing hair and nails and all that stuff, it just doesn't work being a mom and trying to raise children. So the other God-given gift that God gave me was I have a very, very sensitive palate. I can pick out ingredients in anything. So I started out small in the farmer's market. That grew. I ended up buying this small cottage. We were there thinking it would be just a quaint little coffee shop that wouldn't be very busy. It would be very easy for me to manage the kids in sports and have a coffee shop. That was never the case. We were busy from the get-go. And so over the course of COVID, the tire shop, which my husband had suggested several times I go and look at, like, what am I going to do? Put tires on something in a tire shop? There's no way. But I went and looked at it. And from the moment that I opened the doors of the tire shop, I knew where I could put everything. It was just a gift. It truly was. We ended up buying it a week later. I had it 18 months of renovation, finally opened. I guess my advice is look to your community, look to your owners of your businesses, ask them how they did it, their resources. Rely on people in your church, your family, your friends, all the resources you have. We remodeled our 20,000 square foot building with basically a group of volunteers, and it was amazing. I wish you guys could see the pictures, but I'm truly proud of it. And any young woman that comes from a family that doesn't have much, just have courage and don't be scared of trying.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Again, I am just blown away by the drive and the spirit and the tenacity of these women. It's so great to hear from them. And so let's start there with the question. How do you think that your drive and your determination, particularly as women, in what some of you have described as male-dominated sectors. How do you think that has shaped the relationships that you have? Relationships with your vendors, with banks, with your customers? Let's start with Resa, and Leslie and Cathrine, you weigh in too. Have any of you encountered hurdles with male vendors, bankers, customers, or have you ever felt like your male colleagues didn't really want to collaborate with you? And if so, how did you handle these situations?
Yes, I did. And yes, I overcame. I did not let that become a barrier. I wanted to know why someone would not engage. I would be persistent in a friendly way. Sometimes as a female, it's hard for someone to take you seriously. That's where you study, you know, you can talk the game. In my field in construction, even when I was in the lumber industry or oil field industry, one of the first things I did in the oil field was I went out and spent a night on the rig and saw how a oil well was drilled. And that's just been my mantra from then on. Get your boots on, get out in the field, girl, and figure it out, because till you're down in the muck with the guys, you're not going to understand what they say. And you have to understand what they say to work with them, to help them, to grow your business. And the same is true of your vendors. Understand their product. Go to where their manufacturing facilities are. Understand their marketing plans and how that fits with you. Understand your banks. Talk to your banks every month, every quarter, whatever it is. But when you send them your quarterly financials, have a chat, say this is what's going on, so that they know on an ongoing basis where your business is, but they also know that you understand what's going on in the economy, what's going on in your sector, how maybe your business, for me in Robinson, the business that I owned was a geographic anomaly. To have 180 employees at a contractor in Marathon was unheard of. So I had to have a bank that understood that I knew my business, but I also had to reach out to bigger banks to finance my payroll. When turnaround was going on and I was running $1 million payrolls, I had to have a big bank. So I had to have confidence in my vendors. We had to build those relationships with banks and vendors. But at the end of the day, if you're not out in the field with your employees, working with them, you're not going to make it, because your employees are the biggest asset that you have that is not on your balance sheet. And that relationship at the end of the day will make or break you. And you have to make that decision every day, even if that male or female person says something that you don't like. Get over it and get out there and make your business work. That's what I learned.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll follow up on that. So maybe I'll start out at when I was at Celadon. So Celadon's a publicly traded company, trucking company. When I started, we were about, let's call it 250 million in revenue. When I left, we were about $1 billion in revenue. So starting as a financial analyst, being in the finance department, being right out of college, I always thought it was almost my age as being one of the most difficult things to overcome and to be taken seriously. So that was kind of the initial, like, okay, I'm young, I've got to figure out how I can prove that I know what I'm talking about and I'm good at my job. So I was elevated pretty quickly throughout the company, and to the point where I would be going with our executive team on acquisitions, and I'd be the person that was evaluating, should we do this, should we not do this, and meeting with business owners and evaluating their business. And I realized pretty quickly that I need to know what these business owners are doing and how do I talk to them and work with them. They were all men. Their executive teams, typically all men. Sometimes there'd be a woman in, the HR role. But for the most part, it was these small companies that were very male dominated and hadn't been used to a woman, especially a young woman, coming into their business and telling them, hey, you're good at this, but why are you doing this? This doesn't make sense. So I think it was a matter of understanding how to best communicate with grace, with respect for others, and understanding that they're probably more uncomfortable with me being there just because they're not used to it. Not that they don't respect what I'm doing, but there also might be a situation where I know more than what they do in a given area. Doesn't mean I know more than everything, but there may be a specific area, especially how we were looking at the businesses, that made sense to us. So I think it's just kind of being in other people's shoes, and being respectful and graceful in those sorts of situations. You mentioned, Angela, have you had an issue or whatever? I would go to investor conferences, and initially it started as I felt like almost like a babysitter for our initial founder, and it was, he was at an age where the things that he was saying was maybe not the most appropriate situations, and you had a lot of other young people, women, and eventually it was like, all right, Leslie, you're going on your own. And that's kind of when I realized that people are going to recognize me because I stick out. So how do I make sure that I'm networking appropriately? I'm representing our company appropriately. Again, it was having that grace and understanding that sometimes they may be uncomfortable with the situation, but give them a second and they'll realize either I know what I'm talking about, or I won't work with them.
I think I can add a little bit to that as well. 30 years ago, when Resa and I kind of got involved in the business and stuff, you didn't see a lot of women in powerful positions. And if you look at what has happened in the last 30 years within industries, recognizing that women play a larger role in things, there is such a big difference today versus what there was 30 years ago. So those of you entering the business market and stuff today, be grateful that you didn't have to go through some of that, 30 years ago. I'm not going to say that anything was bad. But again, like Leslie, I started very, very young. I mean, I started to work for a CPA firm 3 weeks after I graduated from high school. And most of the CPAs were men. And as an 18-year-old in that environment and a female, you were definitely getting the coffee. You were definitely, answering the phones all the time and everything. But they quickly figured out that I was also young enough to embrace some of the new technology and stuff that was coming on board. So very quickly, in fact, our company, our CPA firm, was one of the first ones in Illinois to get an IBM personal computer. So if you can think back that long ago, that was a really long time ago. But we were one of the first ones in Illinois to actually have a personal computer. And I was spearheaded with the task of learning how to use that and then be able to teach some of the older people how to use that. So for those of you getting into the business and those of you trying to get started, use the skills that you do have. And yes, you need to be respectful to those around you, but it's also okay to emphasize the skills that you do have, and you will get that respect in return when they realize that you know what you're talking about. And I tell people all the time these days, I said, the generation before me, there is a lot to learn from them, but I'm looking to the generation under me. I want to know what they want to know. I want to know where they're wanting to go. And I want to be a part of their future, not only as a mentor, but there's a lot to learn from them too. My position on a lot of things have changed since my kids have become adults, and I listen to their perspectives and the things that they have come across in their young adult lives. And my perspectives on things have changed a lot because I listen to them. And not that I don't listen to my parents still too, but I really think listening to those around you, always be respectful of those around you and never burn a bridge. You never know when you're going to have to cross that bridge again. So it doesn't matter how bad the situation got. It doesn't matter what that person said to you. You storm off and you go in the closet and you scream and you come back out with a smile on your face. And if it means you leave the situation, fine, but leave it in a positive manner, because you never know when you might come across that person again, or when you need that relationship again to move forward.
So it sounds like, and this will kind of segue into a question that's been put in the chat, but it sounds like what I'm hearing is that you three women have had to maybe work a little harder, maybe do a little bit more homework, as Leslie said, maybe have a little bit more grace and a little bit more understanding, find what you have that's special and stands out and capitalize on that in ways that, and I might be putting words in your mouth here, but in ways that maybe your male counterparts don't have to or didn't have to. But I've also heard you say it's getting better. And that leads us to a question in the chat. Freddie's asking, did any of the panelists have a role model? What problems are you facing today being a woman? And so, Robin, do you want to answer that? Did you have a role model? Are there any problems that you face today, particularly as a young woman-owned business, that maybe are a little bit different?
Possibly. I'm not in I guess a business that's run by men, and I had a salon before this, and so I've never really had to deal with that. I did grow up with my grandpa, and so he was probably my role model, taught me about hard work. He used to tell me that if a man made it, then I could absolutely fix it. So even in the industry I'm in today, when something breaks, then I have that same thought that runs through my mind. I mean, every day I'm putting fires out. I'm a plumber, I'm an electrician, I decorate the cakes, I'm a therapist. I think you just have to, like some of the other girls said, work with your employees, work with everyone. Try to keep a positive attitude and speak joy into every situation. Just like Cathrine said, don't burn bridges by getting upset and letting anger take control of you. Those are, I think, some of the things that I face running a restaurant is sometimes dealing with the public all the time. They're not always, they don't always have the kindest words. And so, you know, when my waitresses come back and they're upset, you know, you have to have encouraging words, and then you have to be able to speak joy to them, because 9 times out of 10, it's not something they did. It's something that our guests are experiencing in their own life. But you have to be able to lift your employees up and encourage one another, and just to move forward and know that at the end of the day, you did the best you could.
Anyone else, a role model or a mentor that helped you?
There have been a bunch along the way of kind of those pie in the sky. Angela Rentz, CEO of Burberry, where she was from Ball State, where you're looking at her like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. How did you know, what was this path to get to be CEO of this type of company and then get pulled over to Apple? Like, just some great stories like that. I feel like there are a lot of those that they give me the I would say the drive, and help me with that time where, you know, you feel like you've been spending so much extra effort. I read a quote recently. It was talking about how being a woman in business and in life in general is kind of like a bicyclist on a road. The road was made for cars. It was built for cars. Everything is for the cars. Yes, cars are supposed to yield to the cyclists, but there's an extra effort as you're trying to ride your bike down the road of making sure that you're riding your bike in the right spot. You're keeping an eye out for the cars that are trying to hit you. Some of the cars are going to give you more space, some of them aren't. And I thought that was just such a great analogy of being a woman in business, because we can do it, right? We can do it, but sometimes it's going to take that extra effort, and having those role models that are those pie in the sky people that have, and women that have done so well in their careers, knowing that they have been able to do that, and they've been able to navigate as a bicyclist on that road, and they've done a great job. Just kind of gives me that like encouragement that like, keep going when things are getting too hard and too rough, and it's you know, taking up so much of your energy to do work stuff, and then also come home and, you know, have your second job, right? Be okay with sharing those responsibilities with your husband or your partner, and making sure that, okay, if they don't do it the way you would want it done, that's okay, because you don't have to do it. So I don't know, I feel like there's so many role models and small ones where, you know, you just look at friends that have figured that dynamic out too, where I look for those little areas and those people and things that they're doing kind of all over the place and try and bring that into my life and bring that good energy into my life.
Okay. Robin, I'm going to direct the next question to you. Talk about the importance of a business plan, growth strategies, a value proposition. I mean, it sounds like you didn't really have a business plan that you were going to expand from your 900 square feet to 20,000 square feet, but you did. And so, you know, what are some of the best practices you've used in planning your business and taking it to the next level?
Okay, so when we decided to expand was about the time that Illinois had decided to eventually raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. In 900 square feet, we only had room for 1 oven and 2 roasting ovens. So it was definitely not enough at minimum wage at $15 an hour, that it was either we stayed there and we were happy for 3 more years and then we close the business, or we start looking at somewhere else that we could expand. In Paris, there's not a lot of, I guess, opportune areas to buy a business. So, and I love history. And so I wanted to buy an older building that was maybe falling down in our community. I searched our downtown area. There was a place that was huge. It was called the Horace Link Building. Beautiful, beautiful architecture. That ended up not working out and it fell through. And then, like I said, we found the old tire shop that's north of Paris. I looked and looked probably for 6 months and then finally decided to call the realtor and decide to go in and, I guess, make a game plan. Like I said, when I walked in the doors, I knew that that was a place for me. So it was then breaking down the different areas, like what do we have in our small bakery as far as we have a drive-through, we have a dining area, we have a coffee shop. How do we expand on that? And so as I walked through the 20,000 square foot building, I had to come up with some type of plan. What does it need? Does it need electrical? Does it need plumbing? Does it need construction? Break down all those individual areas. And where do I have those resources within the community that I can pull from, that I can learn from, different banks that I can talk to. Luckily, we live in a small town, so those resources weren't really hard to find. It was just being flexible with my schedule and how things were going to be done. That was probably the hardest part. During COVID, you didn't have a lot of lumber, for instance. So we ended up tearing down 300-year-old barns off of our property and then soaking the wood and ripping it and cutting it and putting it on the walls and shiplapping. My grandpa was a carpenter, and like I said, I spent summers with him. So I did all the woodwork myself. And so I was the construction worker. And then Galen Satterfield from our church, he did electricity. And so he had just retired from Interstar. He volunteered his time. He taught all of us how to solder wires, put in outlets, just all kinds of different things. We even had a kid from our church that was going down the wrong path. He ended up going to a youth convention. And one of the ministries there said, hey, if you're going down a wrong path, put yourself in a place where it's headed in the right direction. So he came home, he approached me and said, Robin, you don't know me personally, but I would love to help you out and remodel this building. And I said, okay, just don't cut your fingers off. And to this day, he still works for us. And his path is like, there are amazing things coming for him. But just being flexible and patient with others. If something doesn't work out, there's probably a reason for it. And the next thing that comes up that might replace that thing that didn't work out is probably better. And I learned that over and over and over again.
Great, thanks. Do any of our other panelists want to talk about the importance of a business plan or how you develop your value proposition?
I think in today's economy, it's important to have a business plan so that when your revenue starts sliding or expenses, as an owner, you know, I looked at that weekly, if not more often, because you've got to have the pulse of what's happening and be able to pivot quickly. So when you see revenue drop for a week, or expenses go up, or you get quotes that are going up, you've got to be able to react. And often in my situation, it would be so drastic that I had to give banks a call. Maybe you've got to increase your operating line for a 6-month period of time till you get over the hump. So keeping a handle on your business plan for me was very important.
I would agree with that. And also, if you are scared of numbers, figure it out. You've got to get over that fear. Take the time, understand your financial statements, and understand what they mean. It's intimidating for sure, but you got to figure it out.
We have 2 new questions in chat. The first one has to do with employees. And Resa, I just thought it was a brilliant observation what you said, that your employees are one of your most important assets, but you don't carry them on your balance sheet. Guadalupe is asking, how do you treat your employees? What do you recommend doing so that they do their job correctly and being motivated at the same time? So what are some of the best practices in managing a workforce, and especially as a woman, and the challenges and hurdles that you might have managing a male workforce?
Well, number one, you appreciate them. There's nothing's better than a recognition of buy a lunch. You buy a team or a crew a lunch. You set some goals for maybe safety. You meet with them, listen to them, encourage them, and learn about them. Maybe they're missing work because they've got a handicapped child. You need to know that and understand that and work with them through that. So lots of times what we see or don't see from our employees, we don't understand because we don't know the root cause behind it. So asking those questions in a caring, concerning way, and lifting up the employees is the best way. If somebody doesn't want to work safe, talk to them about why they've done a practice a certain way and understand their logic so that you can understand how to help them be safe and go home safe to their family every day.
Okay, Leslie, this question's to you. Lisa is observing that your revenues seem to have grown astronomically. She says, what tips do you have for growing a business?
Yeah. So the specific example that I had given before was when I was with Celadon. So that wasn't owned by me. It was publicly traded. So that type of growth was astronomical. The company is now bankrupt. So this is where we go with growth, right? One of the very first things when I bought the trucking company in 2019, I was kind of bombarded by people I had worked with on the Celadon side. And they're like, what's your growth strategy? What's your growth strategy? There is good growth and there is bad growth. Growing to grow is not a smart move. Growing because you're taking market share, you're expanding into a different geography, that's great. There's some really great opportunities to grow, but you really have to grow smart. In the case of Celadon, we did a lot of growth by acquisition. So we acquired, some like 14 companies in, 4 years or so. It was insane. But I would say that there were times that the integration of those companies didn't really pan out like we had planned. Now being the business owner, and we're talking about growth, we've got 30 trucks right now. I think when we bought the company, we had about 28. So we're slowly looking at adding about 5 trucks a year for our growth. And that's how we can grow in the industry. We've got a ton of business opportunity that we can go after, and people want more trucks. They want more trucks. I could probably we were just talking, we could probably add 20 trucks and without blinking an eye and have the business for it. But if there's a downturn, do we have the business then to just support 50 trucks instead of 30 trucks? Do we have the infrastructure to support 50 trucks instead of 30 trucks? So I do think that there's you need to be smart about your growth and understand why you want to grow, and grow profitably. I joke now that I'm in a lifestyle business. When I was in the PE world, a lifestyle business was an opportunity for an investment firm to squeeze out costs, improve revenue, make more money, and then turn around and sell it. So lifestyle business was like, great, you can, make money off of them. There's low-hanging fruit there. And I would agree, there's probably quite a few low-hanging fruit that we could, capitalize on. But is that at the expense of our employees? We've got to be able to sleep at night. Myself and my sisters-in-law, who bought the company, so the three sisters, we have to be able to sleep at night, and we want to make sure that our employees are happy and that they have opportunities. And so for us, being in a lifestyle business and having some moderate growth is perfect for us. But if you want to talk growth and some specifics, I would be happy to chat offline on that.
Great answer. So sort of staying with that theme, growth and employees, and we were kind of talking about employees. Resa, you'd said something about investing in your workforce. How do you see the current tightening of the workforce affecting your business, particularly if you do have the capacity and the opportunity to grow in every other area?
Someone else want to take that one?
I know one time, I think Cathrine, maybe it was you that mentioned in our practice session that, you had experience as a young worker that you used to help drive and guide you, and you're dealing with employees. Is that you that mentioned that? Maybe that's something you could talk about, how some of your former experiences and some of your other positions before you started your own business as an employee have provided guidance to you as someone who leads employees.
Well, I think early in my career, again, several years ago, the workforce and the attitude towards employees was a little bit different than it is now. And I think in this environment, we are recognizing the importance that there is a work-life balance. And this generation who is coming into the workforce really appreciates the life balance that they have. And when we got started in the business, it was always, you better be the first one there. You better be the last one to leave. If you want to succeed, you better be willing to answer the phone and come in whenever it's necessary. And you have to do all of that to get ahead. And I think this generation recognizes that I may need to do that to get ahead, but is it worth it? Is it worth it for my family? Is it worth it for my lifestyle choice? Is it worth it? And a lot of this generation is saying no. So I think as employers, we need to recognize the fact that there's such a thing as flex scheduling and working from home. And I think we all figured that out during COVID. Not everybody is an 8 to 5er. Not everybody does their best work at 8 o'clock in the morning. And so if you have the ability to work with people like my social media people, and I mean, I do a lot of it myself, but I count on other people to help me. Midnight is the best time that they get some stuff done, so you're working with people who have the ability to have some flex scheduling and be able to offer that choice to people. We elected during COVID, and I say this all the time, we were working 70 hours a week, and we had been doing that for almost 6 years. And you don't realize where you are until you're forced to stop. And when the gallery was not allowed to be open, we were one of the businesses, a non-essential business, we were forced to keep our doors shut, as well as the coffee shop initially. And we had an opportunity to take a step back and really evaluate what we were doing. And it's like, what are we doing to ourselves? How much longer are we willing to commit to this? And what kind of changes can we make? If our customers had their choice, we'd be here 24/7. A lot of people wanted coffee at 5 o'clock in the morning. A lot of people wanted coffee or a glass of wine at 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday. And so when we reopened after COVID, we elected to close a couple extra days a week and try to get some of that life work balance back for ourselves. And I think again, listening to our children and listening to the kids below us really helps understand what kind of lifestyle do you want moving forward. So I think as an employer, it's really important to listen to your employees and to provide the best balance possible for people. I think that's going to be the way moving forward.
Angela, one thing that I would add is I think it's important for employers now to realize mental health is important. And to Catherine's point, that life-work balance. When I owned the company, we would have a stretching session. It was like 8 minutes was what it was. We timed it. It was 8 minutes, but it was kind of like the mental health piece that kicked off the day, whether you were in the office or in the field. Everybody did the warm-up stretch and chatted a little bit. So I think mental health, we have to acknowledge that as a need within our workforce and provide resources for our employees and their families when they need it. We've ignored that too long. And I've seen that in my 40 years in business. And I think I'm the senior one here. I'm almost 61. So I know it's important, but I think it's been long ignored by employers as a vital piece of what makes things work.
Guys, this conversation is so great and the chat box is still filling up with questions. We have crossed that 1 hour mark, but I think that we're, happy to keep going and keep the discussion live if everyone wants to stay on. I don't want to drive the discussion away from where it's naturally going. We do have a segment where we want to talk about work-life balance and, talk about how you had to be flexible during COVID and you have to be flexible for other reasons as well. I'm going to go ahead and hit the questions in chat first. This says, Leslie, I own a trucking company and we have the work and the potential to expand, but our issue is acquiring drivers with the driver shortage in the industry. Due to this issue, we're not able to expand and actually turn down work. Oh, I see you've already replied. Does anybody have any ideas or creative ways to I know everybody's doing things, signing bonuses for new employees, signing bonuses for an existing employee that brings you a new employee. Are there any other ways that you're recruiting that are innovative and different that you've had success with?
I can maybe answer some of this. Within Paris, we have a organization called Hopes and Dreams or Restored Hope, and it's the young adults in our community that are struggling or just looking for a skill, a trade, but they just need someone to teach them. So I'm not in the trucking industry, but if you have someone that's there that's willing to train or teach, and you have a type of organization within your community, I would reach out to maybe something like our Hopes and Dreams. There's always kids out there that are wanting to learn a trade and be taught. And they could be a viable asset to your business, just like Ben is with mine.
Robin, along those lines, and something that we've worked specifically because of the trucking industry and the requirement for a CDL, in general, there's just a shortage of drivers. And there's going to be a shortage of drivers, and there has been a shortage of drivers for, I don't know, 15, 20, 30, a long time. We are partnering up with Lakeland College on doing an apprenticeship program. So we just got an apprenticeship program registered and approved by the Department of Labor. So that's another way that, and our trucking in particular, for the most part, we're local, so we can actually hire on and employ 18-year-olds. So in order to cross borders, you have to be 21. So we feel like there's a benefit there that we can actually recruit at the high school level and see if individuals are interested in the apprenticeship program, where then we would pay for them to go to Lakeland, they'd get their CDL, and then they hopefully will be with us for the entirety of their apprenticeship, which should take about 9 months or so, maybe a year. So that's one. And honestly, Facebook has been incredible for us on getting individuals. You kind of have to, I feel like I'm always recruiting 24/7. So I'm messaging back on Facebook and, continuing to follow up and reach out and, hey, you haven't stopped in yet. Are you coming today or are you going to be here tomorrow? Let's set up a time. So making it a specific action that, when I hear, oh, I'll stop by, what time? When will you be here? So it's almost kind of forcing them to show up and actually fill out that application. So that's one thing that we found that works. And we did Indeed is a helpful one as well. We tried some of the other recruiting places, but I found them to be very expensive and we didn't get any local drivers for us. And really we're outside of the Teutopolis area, we could maybe go, I don't know, 30, 45 miles, but much over that, people aren't going to stay very long. They don't want that commute. So for us, that's what would seem to work.
I see Robert agrees in the chat. Robert has said apprenticeships work, exclamation point. So Cathrine, I'm going to direct the next question to you because I know that you said you had to be flexible and pivot. You came out of COVID with maybe a little bit different idea about the work-life balance, but you'd also mentioned running a retail and service business in a small town requires you to constantly be thinking about your value proposition and pivoting. Do you want to talk about that?
Well,
then also, Robin, if you want to jump in too when Cathrine's done, because you had to expand and build out during COVID and you were pivoting and changing. So maybe both of you can address that.
Running a retail business in a small town is especially challenging. I mean, Sullivan has a community of 4,400 people. And as a gift gallery, especially, the town of Sullivan alone is not going to help you meet your overhead and make you a profitable business. So you do have to reach beyond the Sullivan borders, and working locally with the chamber and economic development and the county, trying to attract tourism and always working with that bigger picture and trying to get people to come to town. When I first opened in 2013, there were a lot of empty storefronts uptown. As a small town, we were still recovering from the recession of 2007 and 2008. And there was kind of a resurgence to try to get some businesses going again. And we don't have any storefronts available right now, which is an awesome problem. I mean, we have people wanting to be downtown and there aren't storefronts available for them. But as boutiques here in town, we do try to communicate with each other. We do try to work with each other to draw people, not just from 20 minutes away or 30 minutes away, but from an hour or 2 hours away. And we talk about that a lot, making it a destination for people. And in this day of social media and online shopping, and especially during COVID, everybody, if you weren't online shopping before, you definitely started online shopping during COVID. I mean, that's what we did. And so how do you get those people to come into your store? And social media is the key. I mean, I probably spend 20 to 30 hours a week on social media, not only post for myself, but just trying to reach out there and see what's going on and trying to provide content that's valuable so that people look to you as a resource or look to you as an experience. And if you can create an experience for people to come, whether they grab 2 or 3 girlfriends and come for the day and spend the day in Sullivan, it's just really vital that you try to provide that customer service and you try to provide that experience to make it unique so that you do stand out from the crowd and there's a reason that they want to come in the door. I say since 2013, I have probably pivoted every 18 to 24 months. There's things that we started off with that we no longer do. We were very diversified, knowing that in a small town, not everybody's going to need a gift every day. There's lots of different things that we did. We were a UPS drop-off center for the first several years. And that got people in the door just to drop off their package. But then they'd say, oh, I'll really come back and visit you sometime when I have more time. It's really hard to quantify whether they did that or didn't do that. But after several years of doing that, we realized that we were spending a lot of hours basically becoming Amazon customer support for people trying to return their packages. And it was consuming our day and we were getting 75 cents a package. So you quickly start doing the math on that and think, 4 hours of your day to make $12 on packages just isn't the way to go. So again, looking at your plan and seeing what's working and what's not working, you really have to just constantly be evaluating that. And again, pivoting to where I am today, after COVID and with the doors being closed, I started looking at services. What kind of services can I provide? What other things can I add to the gallery portfolio that don't require somebody walking in and buying a tchotchke? I needed to provide those services to people. So that's where the redesign services, the staging services came in. And then of course, adding the real estate and stuff to that too. Now we do personal property auctions. That is a byproduct of the real estate as well. We're dealing with families who have inherited homes. And in order to be able to sell that home, they're struggling with what to do with the stuff in the home. Well, here's a solution. We can do an online property auction for you and take care of all of that property that you have inside that house. We can help you get rid of that basically, and maybe make you a little bit of money in the process. And then that turns around and makes the house empty so that we have the opportunity to go ahead and sell the property as well. So I think you're always looking for opportunities, certainly things that can enhance or add to the services or the products that you offer. And you've always got to have your eyes open for the next opportunity.
Thank you. That's great. Robin, what about you? What's next? What do you see in this 20,000 square feet or after the 20,000 square feet?
Well, I would say within the business, we probably pivot seasonally just because our menu changes seasonally. And so we're always looking to that. We do have a mercantile. And so I have 8 different vendors that are in the mercantile. So sometimes those come in and out. And so I'm always looking for someone different or the next person on the list. So you always try to stay one step ahead of the game. Right now, I call it grocery hunting. Each Tuesday I go and talk with distributors and decide what they have coming in, if the product that's coming in is good or is bad. Right now, the produce coming in is not good at all. So in terms of expansion, we have acreage behind our restaurant, and I also own a large pole barn. So I would like to eventually turn that into an all-year greenhouse. We do have gardens in the back that we did try out this year, and it worked out really, really well. We were able to do our own canning and juicing and fill lots and lots of freezers. Unfortunately, we have gone through that in the course of just the past 30 days. So being able to have a greenhouse that we could utilize all the time would be amazing. 99% of the stuff that we make at our restaurant is made completely from scratch, to the point that we use, it's called Lot 50 Brewing Company here in Paris. We take their spent grains from the beer that they make and we dry it and turn their grains into flour and make our bread from that. So it's a really, really cool process to watch. Our health department, they like to come in and just sit on stools and watch the whole process. And so that's fun. So just being more farm to table, that's what I would say would be our next step.
I think I saw something in the chat about your peanut butter pie or something.
Oh my
doing the
gosh.
best around.
Yes, we do have good peanut butter pie.
It looks like it's a fan favorite. I want to back up and just ask a question that I didn't get a chance to ask earlier before we go to work-life balance. So how many of you are members of trade groups or industry groups in your sector? And do you feel like that's been beneficial in building relationships, helping to build business? And what's the importance of networking for you? And I'll let whoever wants to answer first jump in.
I'll go. Networking is amazing. So trade groups, it just depends. I was more involved in trade groups when I was with a larger company. Now it seems to be more involved with local government, and also owning this business now, being involved with, so we have our WBE through WBENC, and I just finished a We Thrive program that WBENC offers, which if anyone is interested in having getting their MBA in a shortened amount of time, it was a great program. I think it was 8 weeks. It does not give you your MBA, but having had my MBA, the concepts are so similar, and it was a really great program that they put on. And then awesome networking too. So that was through WBENC. We also have our BEP, which that helps more on the bidding side. But I would say on the networking, on just the struggles of being a women-owned business and running your own business, WBENC has been awesome.
I would say staying involved with your local chamber and again, in economic development. We're all here for the same reason. We're trying to promote our town. We're trying to promote the businesses within our town. And I served on the Chamber and Economic Development Board for about 10 or 11 years. And then as a part of the process with the gallery, my time was consumed so much here. I didn't have the opportunity to network and to attend meetings and to do things like that. And that's one of the things that I really missed when I was on that hamster wheel. So taking that step back and being able to reintroduce myself to some of these groups and participate in some of these groups, the networking is so valuable. Just being front and center in things and being able to chat with people and fellow business people and realize what is happening within the community, and then being part of that larger voice to try to make your community a success. It's always important to be with everyone in the business sector as much as possible so that you can communicate and work towards that common goal.
We're getting close to 3:30 where our webinar will probably end. Why don't we go ahead and start talking about work-life balance? I know that's something that's been important to all of our panelists. It sounds like that's evolved throughout your lifetimes and careers, and you can address maybe how you got to the point where you are today, where you hopefully have found a pleasant work-life balance. Let's start with Resa.
So I'll take that one. I'm the person that for a long time didn't have good balance. And I have learned that I need to have that. You know, one of my tools is if I need to think or be innovative, I can do two things. I can go for a run or I can go for a long bike ride. And that gets me outside and away from, as Cathrine has said, the hamster wheel, right? So I learned that part of being an effective owner leader was I had to have a niche of time to do that every day. So my minimum exercise time is right at 45 minutes, and I do that in the morning. And then I also have a 45-minute quiet time, reading, devotional time. So maybe it sounds selfish, but I try to spend about an hour and a half on me every day. And I have a much better frame of mind. I'm pretty sure my husband's happier about it too. So, but when your kids are young, it's really tough. And I learned that I had to get up at 4 o'clock, and whether that was cleaning or working out, I learned that I still had to have that. And there would be nights that maybe I would only get 3 or 4 hours worth of sleep, but I could function if I had that self-care time. And then too, my husband and I maintaining that at least once a month, we would have a date night. And then we would also have scheduled activities with our kids. We aligned our calendars with each other to make sure that our work life was balanced, and that we weren't one of us going down a path that wasn't healthy for our kids or our marriage or our finances, right? I mean, there's always things that come up, but realizing, hey, I had to work 70 hours 2 weeks in a row. Okay, I need to back off and do 50 because that's healthy for me, my family, and my relationships, and benchmarking those things. So tracking your time, tracking your life work balance will keep it in check. It's easy to say you're going to do it, but for me, I have to have a plan or it just doesn't happen.
Robin or
other
Cathrine,
panelists?
you guys want to go first?
I'll go. I honestly would say I'm still working on this. We just moved to the 20,000 square foot building a year ago. So I probably do work 70 hours a week plus. My husband, we actually just talked about it this weekend that I work 12-hour days and I come home and I work 4 more hours. So I truly need to work on the balancing, but it's really hard when you're in your first year and you've gone from 5 employees to 25 employees, and from a small restaurant to now we have a mercantile with 8 vendors and a reception hall that's booked every weekend, and 104 chairs in our dining room. And so I am definitely working on that. I think what saves me is I love my bathtub. In the evening will go in and take a bath and nobody bothers me. And so I get 15 minutes of my time. And so that's the time that I love. I also teach a junior high Sunday school class, and junior high students are not students that I work with anytime during the week. And so they are truly a breath of fresh air to me. They see things like nobody else does. And so I can go in and give my lesson, and just how they comment to the lesson and just the things that go on in their life gives me a break from mine and anything else that might have gone on that week. Their attitudes are great and they always see a silver lining. So I think in finding balance, it's just finding that escape, even if that escape is a little bit of extra work, like teaching Sunday school or just loving someone else or going out and encouraging someone. If you serve someone and you have a servant's heart, I feel like that you're blessed with that peace and that joy that you need.
I have to say that getting where I am now on the, I don't want to say on the backside of where I'm headed, because like I say, I feel like I'm just now hitting my stride. But I do think in the course of the 9 years that I've had the gallery, I have slowly come to the realization that you do need that time for yourself. Resa, I am certainly not an exercise person. Walking across the room is all the exercise I need. There's no bicycles involved, there's no running, there's no anything else like that. But coffee is my go-to, when I get up in the morning, having that quiet time with the first cup of coffee, and finding that some of those things, when you like going through my social media and doing a little bit of my book work and everything like that, somehow it's just easier when you're sitting on the couch in your jammies with a cup of coffee doing that versus sitting down at a desk once you're in the facility, once you're in the business and things like that. So finding those moments where you can still get something accomplished, but maybe in a more relaxed atmosphere, certainly I think helps me. I also find that now I am so in love with what I'm doing now that it doesn't feel like work. And I have put in 70 hours already this week because next weekend is our Christmas open house. And so getting prepared for that, and merchandise is still rolling in. And I just finished right before the webinar started. I just finished putting lights on another 7-foot tree. We put up 15 trees in the gallery for the Christmas open house. So all weekend long, I've been working on florals, and I've been putting lights on Christmas trees and doing all that kind of stuff. But between now and the end of the year, that is 50% of our gallery sales, 50% in that 8 weeks. So it's such a crucial time for us, but I absolutely love it. And so when you love something like that, sometimes you do have to remind yourself, you do have to go home and sleep, and you do have to go home and get some rest. And I have a very forgiving husband and a very understanding husband that recognizes what this time of year is like, but then also recognizing on the backside of that, this year, we closed last year for the entire month of January to do renovations after we closed the coffee shop. And having that entire month off, we did a lot of reno on this side and getting the coffee shop closed and everything. But it was a really nice respite to have that. And I've already made the decision that I'm going to do that again this year. So January is a slow time after the holidays and everything. So taking some extra time off during that slow period to kind of rejuvenate and make the changes and make a fresh perspective on the gallery again is something that I need to do. But you've just got to, over the course of time, you just kind of figure it out. And at some point you just decide you can either continue down this path, or you recognize that you need to make some changes, and you just got to try to find that balance. And Resa, I think at our age, we're doing pretty good.
I would totally agree with everything that has been already said on in the sense that you've got ebbs and flows, right? You've got some months or years that you're going to be just nonstop, and then other years that you may be a little bit slower and enjoy that time and do the other things. There were a couple pieces of advice that I've taken from, various individuals. But one was you're always going to have to make the choices on where you're going to be, but be present where you are. So if, you decide to work and go to that meeting, instead of going to a kid's basketball game, be in that meeting. If you decide that you're going to go to the basketball game this time, be at that basketball game, be there, be present. Don't worry about what's going on at work. And that's really helped me a lot. I think in trying to juggle this work-life balance. And I've heard it too, not of necessarily of being a balance, but more of this like synergy, right? That this is life. It's just life. So you've got to figure out when you're working and when you're not working. The balance is always going to be messed up, but at least be present and be okay with the decision that you made and what you're working on at that given time. The other piece of advice was ask for help and accept help. I would not be able to do all the things that I do, plus my family does, my kids, the sports, everything that they're involved in. So they're 6, 4, and almost 2. It's insanely busy. My in-laws are the best people ever, and they help out all the time. My husband does so much work around the house and does things with the kids. Again, like I said before, if he doesn't do it how I would want to, how I would have done it, that's fine, because it's done. So I think asking for help and accepting that help, we can't do it all. We just can't. There are not enough hours in the day or the year.
Wow, this is really fantastic. Well, we are right at a hard stop of 3:30. Let's see what's in the chat real quick, if there are any questions. Very impressed. Love hearing these amazing panelists. Yeah, lots of kudos and grateful attendees today. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us, but especially our panelists. I mean, what amazing women, and what terrific advice and information you all have shared with us and our panelists. There is so much that I could recap, but we are out of time. And so I think the most important takeaway that I'm hearing is there's a network of women out there, women who have been through what you're going through or are going through it right alongside of you, and reach out to them and ask for help from them and from other people around you. And then if you're still not balancing work life, I guess head over to Betty Jane's and get a piece of peanut butter pie, and then head over to Sullivan to the Christmas Expo next weekend to Cathrine's. But I think you guys are all doing terrific jobs. And as Courtney said, this webinar is going to be available as a recording, so you can go back through it. The chat should be available. And then also stay tuned to the Illinois Business Navigators network that we have. Stay tuned to our website so that you can see the future webinars. We will be having one in December. As Resa mentioned, mental health is so important. And our December webinar is going to be on mental health in the workplace. So we hope you can join us for future webinars. And thanks for joining us today.